Good day, everyone. So, for the last topic, we are going to discuss now debt bondage. So, as for my part, we are going to learn the definition, issues, and the effects of debt bondage, and which school of thought on feminism best explains the issue. So, let's start now with the definition of debt bondage. So debt bondage, there are many different terms and forms of debt bondage, like for example, bonded labor, indentured labor, debt slavery, neo bondage, and also contract slavery. So debt bondage is considered to be a contemporary form of slavery because it can lead to the situation where the person holding the debt has enough power over the person so as to act as to them. So debt bondage, also known as bonded labor, is a means by which traffickers exploit people and trap them in human trafficking. As for the payment for their debt, traffickers now offer individuals the ability to work to pay off the debt. So how does debt bondage work? So first, a victim is offered to pay a job to pay off a debt. Next, the victim is paid below the minimum wage. Then the trafficker adds more to the debt for items such as shelter or food. And so now the debt then continues to increase because of the added expenses. So in the end, the victim's debt continues to increase and they can never pay it off. So bonded labor, also known as debt bondage and peonage, happens when people give themselves into slavery as security against a loan or when they inherit a debt from a relative. It can be made to look like an employment agreement, but one where the worker starts with the debt to repay, usually under such brutal conditions, only to find them that the repayment of the loan is impossible. Then their enslavement becomes permanent. So, what are the issues now and its effects on women? So, first, trafficking and slavery. So, women, as one of the most vulnerable groups in the society, when they lack of financial stability in search of work, and when they turn into victims with excessive debt, they become trapped in bondage, and some agencies exploit them for sex or labor. So in the context of trafficking in women, death bondage usually occurs when traffickers force women into prostitution to pay off the unlawful debt. So, and as for the second one, there comes the violations or threats to the migrant workers' human rights. So migrant domestic workers are often confined with the household by their employers for weeks at a time or even until their contract ends. Even if their employer does not lock the worker inside, they may have their pay docked or face other consequences when they take their time off or they are offered more money to work 7 days a week. So one interview of a Filipino worker said that if I go out, I lose money. I need more money to pay the broker. I didn't have even one single day off of the whole year, but I didn't want to either. How can I have my days off if I don't have money at all? So as for my last topic, which school of thought on feminism best explains the issue? So after careful evaluation, anti-essentialist theory best explains the issue. Because under this theory, there is no single category female, pointing instead to the varying perspectives resulting, for example, from the interaction of gender, race, and class. Anti-essentialist or postmodern feminism developed from challenges to a notion of a single feminist legal theory and perspective and articulated the need to account for the wide range of feminist perspectives that emerge from women of color, issues of ethnicity, problems of immigrant women that is highlighted here, and cultural differences. So this also comes under discrimination and such other problems. So with the issues arising under debt bondage, aside from gender, it encompasses races, sexual orientation, discrimination among the workers, and other factors that their rights must be protected, not because a woman is being a laborer, but because it is applicable to all workers who are being subject to slavery, human trafficking, violence, and those that acts against humanity. So as for the sources, we have the website of Center for Global Justice, the Advocate for Human Rights, and the New Slavery on the Kitchen. And the link is provided under our last slide of presentation. So Ms. Acosta, you may now have the floor.
I thank you, Ms. Dimaculangan. For the rights of women that are violated under the debt bondage, first, the rights against involuntary servitude, that it is enshrined in the 1987 Philippine Constitution, ensuring that no individual is forced into labor against their will. This right is not just about protecting individuals from slavery or coercion. It also extends to situations like debt bondage, where individuals, particularly women, are trapped in cycles of labor to pay off debts, often under exploitative and unfair conditions. And debt bondage violate the principle of involuntary servitude because they force women into situations where their ability to choose their occupation is severely constrained. This type of modern-day slavery traps women in a state of dependency and helplessness, as they are often denied the ability to freely negotiate the terms of their labor or escape the situation without severe repercussions. Second, the right to pay wages in cash. The law mandates that employers to pay wages in cash. It prohibits employers from interfering with the domestic workers' disposal of wages. It penalizes employers who will place domestic workers in debt bondage. It is stated in the Republic Act 10361, which also called the Domestic Workers Act. And the employers are required to pay domestic workers in cash, ensuring that workers have direct control over their earnings. But in many cases of debt bondage, victims may not have access to their wages, or their wages may be manipulated to trap them in debt. And third, the right to protect from violence and abuse. Women in debt bondage often experience intimidation or direct threats from their captors or employers. This can include threats of harm to the woman or her family members if she tries to escape or report the abuse. And force can also be a part of debt bondage, particularly when women are physically restrained, locked in rooms, or subjected to physical violence to ensure they continue working without protest. And the vulnerability of women in debt bondage makes them prime targets for sexual exploitation because they are already in a desperate position with limited choices or resources to escape. And for the laws on women that are violated under the debt bondage, first, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW. Under Article 6 of the CEDAW, it focuses on the protection of women from trafficking and the exploitation of prostitution. These provisions emphasize the need for legislation and policies that address the root causes of trafficking and exploitation, protect women from these abuses, and hold their perpetrators accountable. The goal is to create an environment where women are free from exploitation and have the ability to live with dignity, autonomy, and security. And under Article 11 of the said law, it aims to ensure that women are treated equally in the workforce, have access to necessary protection like social security, and can work in environments that respect their health, safety, and personal choices. And second, the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act of 2003, or the Republic Act number 9208. Debt bondage represents a clear violation of women's rights under the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act of 2003, as it involves coercion, exploitation, and denial of freedom, all of which are prohibited under the law. The act is designed to prevent trafficking and exploitation, yet that bondage keeps women trapped in abusive, exploitative conditions where they cannot escape, effectively denying them their basic human rights. And the third one is the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995, or the Republic Act number 8042. That bondage is a clear violation of the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipino Act of 1995 because it traps workers, especially women, in exploitative, involuntary, and abusive conditions, preventing them from enjoying the rights and protection guaranteed by the law. And the recommendation, by addressing the root causes of bonded labor, strengthening legal protection, promoting economic opportunities, and advocating for social justice, we can work towards eradicating this egregious violation of human rights. And IOMX is the International Organization for Migration's innovative campaign to encourage safe migration and public action to stop exploitation and human trafficking. The campaign is produced in partnership with the United States Agency for International Development. And the International Labor Organization is both helping Indonesia and the Philippines strengthen the outreach of domestic workers organization and creating linkages with organization of migrant workers in the neighboring destination countries of Malaysia and Hong Kong. So these are the sources of our topic. So that's all po. Thank you.